How's it going, Ellio? It's been a long time coming, and been meaning to do this collab since forever. So really happy that we get to finally put this together. And yeah, excited to talk about everything markets related. And we've been chatting about
All
how
right,
we
are you
see
gonna
this
tell
market
him, or
so far.
do I get to tell him? This is a new podcast, and it might only have one episode ever, but it might have episodes forever. It depends on how you guys like it. So, with that said, let's talk about it. What's up with Trump Coin?
Yeah, so I think elephant in the room, Trump meme coin. We both, we were just going crazy Friday night trying to figure out if this was even real. Can they even hack the president's account? And I still have a position, and I think it's pretty cool. Like yesterday, he actually officially confirmed it on an interview that he did launch it. So this checked some marks for me personally, that he can actually
You
mention it.
still
I was
had
pretty
doubts
surprised.
by
Yeah,
yesterday. You
I
still
was
had doubts.
doubting because like it's never a 0% chance, right? I was putting in maybe 5% chance that it's fake, and maybe he will never mention it because there's this like rule people says he can't benefit, right? But I was pretty surprised he said he launched it. And
Yeah, it was funny. Yesterday, there was that big collapse when he had his statement. But I think we should just start and walk through it from the beginning, which is, what is this thing? And obviously, a lot of people have talked about it, but that first night was mania. I personally had been thinking, obviously, through the whole campaign era, and we know that he had at one point he got assessed like a fee of like $300 or $400 million. He was not raising as much money as the Kamala team, and it was very clear that like financial upside and quick financial upside was going to be something that would be hugely impactful for him. And then we heard that he was raising money from crypto people, and of course at this point like things like whiff, like a dog with a hat, right, are just going to like $4 billion. And in my head I was like, man, Trump's the biggest meme there is. Why wouldn't he just drop a meme? Like that was already my thought process since the campaign, given all of his sort of financial woes and everything going on there. Obviously, I'm not saying that he's in financial trouble, but he was getting hit with from a lot of different directions between financing a campaign and the legal penalties. So I was mentally prepared for a Trump meme for over a year now, and I just thought it was obvious. And when they announced World Liberty Fi, I was kind of confused. I was like, do we really want the Trumps like trying to build stuff as if they're hardcore builders, or do we want them to kind of do what they do best, which is like absorb the attention flow and kind of just focus more on that side of the crypto angle? And I was shocked when they did World Liberty Fi, but I still think World Liberty Fi is actually shaping up to be something at least worth following. Certainly it seems like they're taking it very seriously. That being said, I was mentally and emotionally prepared for this. I think a lot of people weren't.
I did not see this coming, to be honest. It was so last minute and so close, and even for him it's pretty ballsy to do this on a government official account. He retweeted it again, and yeah, it was pretty nuts. But on the other hand, he's the president now, so what's everyone else gonna say about it?
Well, he fired and hired the only person who would actually pursue litigation against this, right? He is, about to take the highest office in the land. I just highly, highly doubt that. I don't know. It doesn't feel to me as ballsy as it seems, because meme coins, as much as they are these crazy vehicles that people call like, oh, this is crime, this is crime, that's crime, that's crime. Everyone makes this joke that meme coins are crime. Well, they're really not. Obviously, if you create a meme coin and then you rug it, like that's a crime. Like you've done something, you've manipulated markets, you've essentially stolen from people. But if you create a meme coin and it's successful, there's no real laws that you're running afoul of. Like you're not creating a common enterprise that people are contributing to with the expectation of efforts from others. There's no securities regulations. Like meme coins are kind of outside of that bubble because there's no actual activity of the company.
That's very interesting. So assuming this coin is going to live on for multiple years, even past this first phase of his presidency, this is going to set something in the future for how meme coins are treated. Because give it like 4 years, at some point, even when he leaves office, assuming this hasn't rugged by then, it has to have a classification, which is going to be representing one of the largest meme coin and how meme coins will be perceived.
Yeah,
Right now,
they might
it's
call them.
it's
They
pretty
might call
fun.
them something else. They might call them like attention assets or whatever, because you're not actually expecting a business to generate revenue for you. You're just not.
Pretty cool, actually. Maybe we can have meme coins starting from this and setting a precedent for something that's not a security, but also not like utility coin. And probably, I wouldn't call it commodity, but what is this exactly? Maybe they'll come out with something
It's
in
not a
this cycle.
commodity, dude. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
think it's any. I don't think it's any of those things, right? And I think that when people, I think this is just the friction of trying to match the new crypto assets with an archaic system that really doesn't match, right? Oil is a productive asset, right? And it's an asset that you need to do other things with. Corn, all of these things are commodities, right? You use them in business, in trade. They are the backstops of industries. Meme coins are just internet particles, right? And I think that people will gradually, the way I always have seen crypto, which is a saying that I think should come back here, is it's the internet of value. And I think that really puts the concept of internet first, which is like the stuff on the internet is now getting value, as opposed to like, oh, let's take these older classifications of assets and then like cryptofy them. I think that that's the wrong mentality. I think it's like, okay, look at what goes on the internet. You have content, you have culture, you have industry, you have software as a service, you have all these things that happen, including, you know, trading assets, and now they're just getting this sort of blockchain rail behind them and financialized. I think that there will be a very difficult road if you try to call everything a security or commodity when it's neither of those things. A meme coin is neither a security or a commodity. It's just an attention asset that people can trade.
that's cool. Maybe this cycle we'll see something, at least for Trump, for Doge, Pepe, right? The large ones to be together as something new. That's actually pretty bullish for memes. I didn't think of it like this because there's not enough like push there to have Dogecoin being recognized as something new as a asset class, because I mean people are okay with it as long as it's not a security. But with this, like it has to be officially something eventually, and that's actually, yeah, that's a pretty good move actually. I didn't think of it like this. It's bullish for memes overall.
Well, securities are defined by the Howey test, which is silly, but it also fails, and most cryptos fail the Howey test, and so, which is good. You want to fail. And so the real question is just like, what are they? I think we'll find out. Obviously, Hester Pierce has kind of suggested that we're going to get this regulatory sandbox. So, okay, crypto projects can launch, and then they have 2 years to kind of achieve certain things or do certain things to tick certain boxes, which I can see, honestly, that being kind of almost productized. Like, oh, do you need to pass your security regulation thing to get out of the sandbox? Like, here, we are actually a protocol that helps your protocol pass those, you know? Oh, because you need this type of governance, you need this type of vote, you need this quorum of voters, whatever the random tests they set up for are. I think what they have to be really careful of is that they don't discourage building, because what's the real question here is, what's best for the industry? Is it attention assets? Obviously, those will bring people in. You can think of that as like the reality TVs of like crypto, you know, the sort of the junk food of crypto. But you need also a balanced diet, or else the body doesn't survive. And so the question is like, where is the substance? And if DeFi all of a sudden to build something that's useful, or to the industry, is now subject to insane regulation, but you could just drop a meme coin and achieve an equal valuation, maybe higher, because you don't have all those regulatory overhead costs and stuff and timelines. I think that there's a danger that, because meme coins are really hard to regulate and they don't fall into these buckets, and certainly there's not going to be any political will to create new regulations towards meme coins, there's a danger that now all of a sudden stuff that does stuff gets put into a much harder bucket to achieve. Maybe that's a good thing. Like if you slice it and you're like, okay, well, only serious teams can pretend to be serious, or whatever, can purport to be serious. I don't know. It's just hard to see. I think there's a danger that now meme coins get sort of carte blanche and everything else has a hard road if there is that. That's something that I've been aware of.
I've been thinking about the same as well. So I don't know if I talked about this on video before, but it's like for now we have this like easy moment because we are in this moment and it's not fully there yet. We're seeing potential, right? Hester Pierce, SEC reform, this like crypto task force. We're going to have clear regulation, but it's still regulation. And what the SEC can control is just securities, and then they have the CFTC for commodities. But that doesn't mean everything is going to be a commodity, right? It's far from it. And also, we don't want everything to be a security. And also, this doesn't mean everything else is freely tradable everywhere, right? That's not what the SEC does. So
Yeah, I don't think anything, I think we lose if anything becomes a security, right? Because if all of a sudden part of this market is securities, legally they can't trade on the blockchain or on exchanges or anywhere, right? All of a sudden now you need to have like a government ID behind every trade,
yeah,
because that's how securities are. They have to be regulated in their trade to certain types of investors or whatever. That's not going to work, right? It's incompatible with the tech, right? The tech doesn't allow that. So if I create a token on chain and then it's on a DEX, which of course it would automatically be, so now all of a sudden all these laws have been broken. It's like that to me is, we can't accept that as an industry. We have to push for tech compatible, realistic stuff, which is like, okay, this is not a security because it's on the blockchain, and securities laws are fundamentally incompatible with blockchain. I think that that's just kind of the way I see it, but we will, I don't know. Who knows? We'll see what happens with that. I think the more interesting question is less about like what's going to happen with the regulators, because right now the regulators are in a mentality of like, let's be sensible, right? Their whole thing is let's be sensible. And so anyone can come out of the corner, a powerful crypto person, and say that's not sensible. And then that regulation now gets tabled again. And now we get like back to the huddle. But I do think that what's interesting here is that we've seen a change to the industry that started with Trump here. I think we should talk a little bit about like, did this benefit the industry or not? And I think that's a lot of the debate right now is like, was this good or bad? And I think like, from my perspective, it was undeniably massively positive. But it also did something where it revealed maybe to some people who had more, I guess, personal frameworks around what crypto should or would be in their head. It kind of maybe felt uncomfortable that it ripped the mask off of what crypto maybe is really.
yeah, I see it like what Trump has done so far even surprised me a bit because I didn't expect this meme. And honestly, he dropped so much when he was not the president, and he clearly understands crypto. He knows how to profit from crypto, but I didn't expect so close to his presidency, his admin to come in and still pushing more after he has already won, right? So he could have said a lot, gotten the votes, and just be done with it. That's probably what Kamala would have done. But I think this is good.
One of the things that I would say is important here is he knows that, and he views, I think, crypto as owing him, you know? And I think that he sees it as like, I did so much for this industry, they'd be nothing without me. And while I don't think that that's true, I think that crypto would always have continued and survived and thrived in its own way, maybe not at this sort of unhinged level. Yeah. I do think that he is right. Like we do owe a debt to his boldness in standing up for crypto. He didn't, like you said, he could have said all these things. Most crypto people would have voted for him. And then we're just here sort of sitting, waiting, begging for something to happen. Now all of a sudden we're just begging for crumbs. Whereas first day and a half, right? Ross Ulbricht freed, Bitcoin strategic reserve being talked about, his team aping, tens of millions of dollars of ETH and Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. It looks like he was being 100% serious. And I think that from that perspective, he knows, hey, look, I feel like I did a lot for these guys. It's time for them to do something back. And I think this is an easy way for everyone to do that. I mean, obviously, that's sort of, to me, I know that a lot of people were shocked that he did this, but to me, I'm just totally not shocked. I am shocked about Melania. I think that should have never happened, and I think that was, I just don't understand why they did that at all.
Okay, so what you said there is actually very interesting. Like it's breaking down the psychology a bit. So basically, what you were saying is giving people this Trump coin to kind of make it be his legacy, and that's the way we can. that's cool. That's a good way to think about it, because there was no other way that we could have really contributed to whatever he is about other than the presidency. But again, like I said, he's already voted in, so why did he keep going? And this makes sense, actually. This is something everyone can do, and it will, the way I see it, how it's phrased, right? Trump and the memify of it, the more slogan part, and his family name instead of like the whole thing, or even MAGA, right? It's not MAGA related at all. It seems to that he wanted to extend beyond just this term even.
Well, I will be clear.
Yeah.
I think you and I both share the agreement that once he starts vesting, I trust him 100% to sell.
Of course. Yeah.
So I like, that's the thing is I think it becomes a different dynamic once those 80% coins start unlocking, where he will feel like that's his just reward for everything he's done for crypto. And so do I think he's going to perfectly out the exit? I think he'll probably do what he can, but if supply doubles in the first few unlocks, like, I don't know, like that's where I want to be, like, more or less out of the trade, or have hedged my bets before that. But at the same time, I think the question that we should get to now is, was this good for crypto, right? Was this good for crypto? Not from a regulatory standpoint, not from his standpoint, but like for the industry. What do you think?
This coin alone, I don't know. I think the part that what it means for meme coins, maybe it's positive, because this thing needs something of a basket to put it in long term. I think what he has done before definitely is positive for crypto, and the potential reforms we'll see coming up. What he's doing, like, this is good for Sol, obviously. It tested Sol, like, to the biggest extent possible that we'll ever see for DEX. And clearly it shows, like, however big of a launch, like whatever it is, IPO level, way bigger than IPO level, you can do it on chain, on Sol, on Jupiter, or whatever, on Moonshot. And it can reach global virality in 3 days. That's pretty positive. That's like a use case perspective for DeFi even. Positive. What else? I mean, there's a lot of things he has done, like the Bitcoin, Ethereum side. We'd love to talk about that in a bit, but yeah, overall positive.
Obviously, I think a lot of people are saying, oh, this undermines the credibility of the industry. I think that people who have been, at the forefront of like DeFi and L1 protocols trying to say, okay, this is hardcore tech, this is the new NASDAQ, they're struggling, right? Because the most, talked about, most valuable, quickest launch has been a non-productive asset, right?
But at the same time, it's the tech of it, right? If we're talking about purely tech, now you can have anything launch on Sol and tradable across every single person with a wallet in the world, and have that be done, be smooth over the first, like Trump was, it was a good launch. It was, anyone could have bought, like, within first hour. And I don't think you can do that on IPO level for, like, there's so much going on there. And then also a lot of friction there. Yeah, I think this is bullish.
I was playing devil's advocate because I think it's quite bullish, but I think a lot of people thought that it looks bad. I think there's a lot of people who still are just very anti-meme coin, right? I know you and I have been covering meme coin since 2023. So you and I are at least open-minded, right? I think is the right term. I know neither you or I focus on them particularly, but I think there was a lot of people who thought, okay, this is just a bad look.
I guess a little bit for the space, you could say, but if it rugs, obviously it's a bad look. But so far it's fine. Like, Melania is kind of weird. I gotta give him that. He shouldn't have done that. I feel like that's something. I don't know. Like, something must have happened after they launched Trump. I highly doubt that they plan to launch 2 coins.
Yeah.
For these two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thought process now that I've been chewing on it, I think you even said this, like, they couldn't do it once they got into office. but they couldn't do it while Gary Gensler was in power either. So if they launched it before Gary stepped away on Friday night, then they would have gotten sued immediately. But if they did it but they had to do it before they got into office. So they essentially had to get both tokens out. There was a decision made. I know that Melania did NFTs as well. So I think that there's just a decision that has been made that like when Trump does crypto stuff, that's sort of brand based, Melania will do it too. Maybe she's pushing him behind the scenes. You know, we do things for our wives, right? But at the same time, that was why I think it happened so close together, because it was obviously it was horrible timing. This is why I think that fundamentally this is a bull case, right? Which is a cycle, as people define it. I thought this was really well phrased, is fundamentally people showing up because they missed something that's already too expensive. And you saw that happen in 2021, where NFTs, went crazy, where Dogecoin went crazy, where Bitcoin went crazy. All of these things, traditionally, Bitcoin is the thing that people miss. And they're like, oh, I'm not paying 50 grand for that. I'm not paying whatever for that. And then they look for the next thing, right? And so I think that what Trump and its coin could represent here is the first big miss of the cycle that has now been globally coverage. I know that tons of normal people that are in my normal life are talking about this coin. And I think they saw there was almost 500,000 or 1 million new wallets created through Moonshot app. So we saw hordes of people come on chain. We saw a significant chunk of people come on chain just to trade this. And what I thought was interesting was the price didn't really move once it got onto Coinbase, Robinhood, Binance. So it showed that there actually is a significant population now on chain, and they're not going to need to go to Coinbase first. They're going straight on chain with things like Moonshot and other sort of consumer apps. So I think all in all, when people look at like what makes crypto go up, which is fundamentally what people want to see, this is good for all of those things. And at least for the next 3 months until they get coins, I think there's a chance that it could continue to go up. And if it makes new highs here in the near future and continues to rocket, I think that the amount of people that come on chain for this will be a lot, right? It'll be insane.
Pretty bullish from Moonshot for sure. So
yeah, it looks like they have a deal with Robinhood, right?
I don't know. Oh yeah, they have the Robinhood withdrawal is like a whitelisted process or something, and they said you can transfer SOL from Robinhood to Moonshot pretty easily now. Like yesterday, I think that they had that.
My genuine question to you is, what does this mean as far as where we are in the cycle?
Oh, man.
What does this move us forward or backward in innings? And I think that you could see it either way. You could make a case for either.
I think that's so. I think we are definitely like 2021 now. So if we go by the same playbook, I think we're pretty close to like January, February 2021 at least. This is kind of the first major like disbelief move on Doge. I see. I was just looking at the Doge chart the other day. Like when Doge went from, what was it, like 4 cents to 10 cents? This is kind of what it felt like then. And that was maybe 3 months out before the first big peak where everything was pure FOMO. So I think we're moving pretty fast, because even last month before the new year, it felt pretty, there was still a disconnect, like retail, CT. It felt like it still might not happen for a while, but now this is like suddenly triggered by this a bit.
Okay, so when people say alt season, I don't think anyone expects every altcoin to go up rampantly. In fact, we don't care. We only want our own bags to go up. And if you're really a student of this industry, you're not picking bags that are totally irrelevant. No one's talked about in years and years and years. I think that there's like this weird gap when people say, oh, we expect an alt season. I think people think that means you expect, Bitcoin Cash and like all these other things. Like, yeah, I think Bitcoin Cash might have a FOMO blow off top if we get a super cycle, whatever. But we're talking about the core bags that everyone's like holding and everyone's talking about, have buzz, have excitement, have community, have hungry teams, the new interesting stuff or projects that have become interesting again, and so that's where I think I do expect there to be some kind of big push in alts and at least the good ones, right?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be like everything runs all together equal percentages anymore for alt season. Kind
But
of
it wasn't like
because
that
there's
it wasn't like that in 2021 either. A lot of stuff got left behind.
it was certainly easier than this, but it wasn't like 2017. At least 2017 was like everything was up 50%.
Oh,
Whatever's on
2017 was
Bittrex.
like throw a dart, right? But
Yeah.
in 2021, if you remember at the end of 2020, first of all, it was like DeFi had run,
DeFi
and then
first,
there was
yeah.
like dot eco and like a bunch of random little pockets that were like wildly outperforming. And then you got kind of like this really heavy sledgehammer of liquidity, but it went mostly into like Solana, some DeFi, some L1, like there was L1 season.
Yeah.
But there was tons of stuff from 2021 that didn't make it, or from 2017 that didn't make a comeback. Like Tron never even came close to its all-time highs, you know, and there was a ton of stuff that that didn't make it, right, and was obviously the wrong bags to hold. And then you got NFT season, and then you got gaming season, and so there were these narrative seasons, but there wasn't like a broad-based alt season, but people call that alt season, right? And so when I say alt season, that's what I mean. It's like there will be an AI mega bubble, there will be a RWA bubble, maybe. I'm not holding a lot of RWA, but I'm looking to get some exposure here. There will be, obviously, I think there's going to be a massive gaming season, which will, my thought process on that is the wealth effect from the growth in majors and L1s will then start funneling into NFTs and gaming, kind of like it did later in the bull run. And then play to earn is going to go bananas again. And so I think that that's going to be a very underrated part of the bull run, but will print potentially some of the biggest gains of the entire run. I think it's going to be insane, the gains in that part of the market. I've positioned my portfolio for that. And then obviously memes, right? I think that the power law memes, like the top 10 or so memes that are able to continually keep having parabolas, are going to make it to some astronomical values, but it's not going to be every meme. And certainly, like we've seen, the bucket of memes worth holding continues to wither and dwindle. You know, it seemed like everything's going up, and maybe we'll get another season where everything seems to go up. But I think, especially with Trump, it makes it even less likely for some of these other memes to be successful, if that makes sense. I don't know.
I think the narrative-driven, like narrative-based altcoin seasons, I would say the first narrative has just clearly proved, which is the AI agents. I wouldn't even say memes before were really anything very easy mode for market, because there was way too many cabals and way too many bad memes. But this AI thing since the agent since gold, it has been easy mode if you were just shooting in the blank for 2 months. And in that sense, yeah, there has been a AI agents alt season clearly for 2 months.
Yes.
Yeah.
AI agents are like the DeFi summer, right? Where like anything in DeFi summer was just gonna go bananas. You just had to get there early in the cycle and early in the growth curve or the pool, and then you'd make insane money. That was like the moment we had with AI agents, where like everything just went bananas.
Yeah, actually, like.
But
AI
what happens
agents
next? I feel like
just-
everyone is. I'm sure you're seeing this. Every project's DMing you, being like, "Oh, we have AI agents now." You know, it's like it's become quite overwhelming.
Yeah, it's just like when we had a DeFi farm. We're going to introduce our farm.
Yeah.
Late 2020. Yeah, heavily commoditized now.
We just call that staking now.
yeah. And there's no tech required anymore. You just do it.
So what do you think comes next? I mean, I think we still get another wave of AI agent hype, but then I think we get sort of a peak of inflated expectations and money starts to spill into a lot of other stuff. Because my biggest problem with the AI agent thing is that AI agents fundamentally are not AI agents inside crypto are not the tip of the spear of the innovation in AI, right? You're not actually seeing, that's not where the behavior is sort of natively being innovated on, whereas DeFi doesn't exist outside of crypto, right? So the DeFi season, like you couldn't just, OpenAI wasn't working on DeFi, like Meta wasn't working on DeFi. Whereas like you heard about the Stargate, you know, thing. Yeah. So apparently they're going to spend $500 billion in the next 4 years with all of the Avengers of equity funds or of big banks are going to essentially spend infinite money to create the future of AGI in the United States. I mean, how does this, to me, like it kind of once again makes it very clear that the AGI or the AI agencies in crypto is just a trade.
I think it's much less about which narrative blew up, because the AI agents sector is so small, even by total market. It's 10 billion. Like Sam Altman could have pumped this himself from 0 to 10 billion. It's and taken over the whole narrative. It's much more. It says a lot more about the timing of that there is bigger liquidity willing to make something happen now, and it coincided with something that sparked like AI agents. If it was something else in this narrative, in this timing that came up, it probably would have been equally as successful, as long as there are enough funds behind it. So yeah, I don't think it's AI agents specifically. AI is a lot bigger. There's a lot more money in AI. Yeah, but I don't think AI agents plus crypto is the holy grail. Nah.
I do think AI agents solve the usability and UX issues, and that's what I've been saying since the beginning, which is these sort of mimetic AI are just, to me, just another. Where I will say I disagree with you a little on that there wasn't a meme coin cycle in 2024. I do think there was, and I also do think that meme coins as an industry have certainly found product market fit, right? And I think that there's something to be said there. However, AI agents to me are just meme coins. Like that's to me is the biggest problem, is that they are being pitched as utility coins, but really they're just meme coins that satisfy the bell curve better. And that's where I see it.
Yeah, that's really well. It's AI agent coins. So many of them right now are just meme coins that take their mascot and slap the LLM on top of it to reply to people on Twitter. That's it. So it's smart memes.
Yeah, and they're so annoying.
Yeah.
Whereas, and that's why, like to me, I'm like, okay, well, if you boil it down, they're really just meme coins with a new twist, and a new genre of meme coins. The real innovation triggers for AI are not happening inside crypto. So, like when you get to like where like the interesting, actual scalable future stuff is, I think DePIN is still kind of like very interesting, because it makes total sense. And it's found a supply side product market fit where they just need to find demand side now. And I just think there's a lot of exciting things happening with AI, but the agentic side of it is still mostly meme. Where it gets really interesting to me is, when do I get my personal co-pilot where I can just literally verbally say, oh my God, I need to get out of I need to get out of this coin. Oh my God, what happened with Trump? And they're like, oh, this is what happened with Trump. And like, oh, I need you to hedge that position. Like, you know what I mean? Instead of me having to go and kind of find stuff and do it, like that would be so amazing if I just had an agent that was constantly monitoring my portfolio and helping me make great decisions, and then completely abstracting away the usability issues. Like, I don't need to touch anything. I don't need to go to this aggregator or that DEX or whatever. Like, that's not a decision that I should be even thinking about, you know? That to me is the real value.
Yeah, I watched your video on and how you use Grok. That has been a big unlock for me. Just searching on Twitter. Yeah, Grok is so smart for crypto Twitter specifically, because there's so much info that's not public on Google, but is on Twitter. Somehow it doesn't index, but Grok is able to find it. It's pretty cool.
Well, I don't think they're allowed to index it. I think like Elon's been very smart about where he allows the information to go, because he knows that if you have essentially the largest real-time human-based information funnels, you'll end up having the best information like in the long run. Because if you know, like anytime anything happens, it ends up on Twitter within like 2 seconds. Whenever I feel like an earthquake, and I think like, was that an earthquake in LA? I search earthquake LA on Twitter, because that's where you'll know first. Like, it's kind of crazy, the information that you find on Twitter. But anyway, I wanted to close out here with a few more questions, which is just, where do you think we are in the cycle, and with everything considered, and what do you think is like, do you think we see some short-term like explosive price action? Do you think like February is going to be February 2021? And if it is, does that make you want to kind of like exit your portfolio in large part in Q1 or Q2?
So I think between Q1, Q2, April, May ish, usually that's a really good time. Um, that's what I'm hoping to do. Again, maybe by the time it comes, I'm gonna think just like April 2021. I think this is going to Valhalla right away. But yeah, assume if we get anything really explosive, I think the summer months usually it will cool down.
If we get a Bitcoin strategic reserve, then what?
Oh man, a whole Bitcoin. So I wouldn't exit all my crypto holdings throughout this year. At least keeping Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. That's kind of good middle ground, I think. Because even if you get a drawdown, like you're not gonna have too much risk, assuming you already have a bag. Like you just think, oh, like fast forward, we're in May 2021. You know, if Bitcoin ETH SOL can double, but then it draws down another 30%. Like you just pretend that you fast forward it 4 months into the future and you'll be okay. But if you're, I wouldn't buy more at that point. And
Yeah.
then, yeah.
So my whole thing is when you think about what creates these cyclical crushing bear markets, fundamentally, obviously, when things go way up like that, they have to come down a bit. But I do think that there's also an element of you only get these massive, like the world is over type bear markets when people really stop believing in the asset class. And you saw that took place each and every time. I think in 2013, people were like, well, no one even expected it to be worth more than a few jars of mayonnaise. And now it's at $1,000. 2017, everyone was like, okay, anyone who knew this was like, yeah, this was a bunch of vapor cycle craziness. Tether, there was all these overhanging doubts of like, what's real, what's not. And then you got like some enforcement actions there in 2018 from the SEC, and people were like, oh, okay, party's over. You know, this is done. This is never going to happen again. And then we got 2021 and it was capped off with Luna and FTX. And so I think like that at each point, there was a reason to say, well, this is never going to happen. This is it. This is done. There's no way this is happening again. And if we get a BSR, I just don't think that you'll have that same mentality. It'll shift. And that could be the ultimate pain trade, is that there is a shift from a 4-year cycle to a long-term accumulation asset. And that could cause a tremendous amount of people selling, dumping everything, then buying higher again. Because the buyers of Bitcoin right now are not buying for a 3-month trade. And that's where I think that you need to kind of like, obviously there's always been a hardcore buyer base for Bitcoin that are long-term, but the bull market buyers are there to buy and sell. And so what happens when the vast majority of buyers start allocating based on the fact that this is a long-term strategic asset for the government? That is fundamentally a sea change. And I don't think that people can apply their models to it. So if we get a Bitcoin strategic reserve, let me put caveats on this, that where they're actively buying Bitcoin, right? Not where they're just keeping Bitcoin that they've seized, which to me is cute, but not bullish. It's nice, but it's not bullish per se. If they are actively buying Bitcoin as a hedge against uncertainty or as a strategic advantage in the world, to me, that shifts the paradigm. And I think this concept of like, yeah, I'm going to try to dump it all by Q2, I think that that's going to cause a lot of pain. And certainly at most, I'd look to exit like 30 to 40% or so, maybe 50% of my more cheap hot alts in Q2. But I'd definitely be looking, like you said, to be moving those into Bitcoin as opposed to stables, and sort of continuing to ride this paradigm of this new asset class, which I just can't imagine if we get a Bitcoin strategic reserve that most people have the right model for that.
So I'm curious, are you a very long-term Bitcoin hodler, like let's say 10-year out? Do you have like what's your
For sure.
yeah?
For sure.
I'm kind of in that camp as well. I think like I've been at least Bitcoin pilled as much as most people. I think before it was purely like looking at like before this ETF and this BSR stuff, it was a lot more, I don't know, theoretical, you know, what it could be. Now it's much more like math based, like it just takes time, but I just don't see how Bitcoin doesn't get to a million eventually. And it's not like, oh, I'm going to pass it to my children, grandchildren, and they can see a million. Like I will see it quite soon,
Yep.
while I'm still young. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
correct. I think, and then you have to ask the question: if it gets to a million, why wouldn't it get to 10 million? Like there becomes the real question, which is like, why would it stop there? And you could say, oh, gold. But you could then start making the case that gold doesn't really do the job that it says it does on the tin. You know, it kind of people use it as like, yeah, I have that life vest under my seat. You know, that's how they use gold. You know, the financial entities, but they don't actively be like, no, their whole strategy is around gold. Like nobody has a real strategy that's meaningful around gold. So I think that like gold is kind of like target one. And then once you hit target one, you move to the other targets, which is like, okay, how many people are just putting money passively in real estate? How many people are putting money passively into these other assets that because they're scarce, right? When in fact they require, you know, all kinds of overhead that is not present with Bitcoin. And so I think that like there are the actual mathematical targets for Bitcoin keep extending higher. And just to be clear, I plan to hold Bitcoin and accumulate for probably the rest of my life until something changes.
I totally agree. I think I was looking at your tweet earlier. Just this, like I can't believe Larry Fink is actually on the same math. But
You're the one who's the first person I said.
I
You just
literally, I
this is your
did
framework.
like I did this math, right? I was like, okay, people say Bitcoin should match the portfolio allocation of gold, and then if you like, this is all out there. You have the total wealth, you have gold market cap, total amount of gold in the world. It's like 5% average wealth funds. Bitcoin is at 0.5. And if we get to 3% of total wealth, Bitcoin is at a million. It's actually a very round number, because like even taking into account like 10-year time frame growth of total wealth, it's cool here. He says 700K and 2%. So he knows the exact same number, which is 700 trillion total wealth in the world, 2%, gives you 700K in Bitcoin. He's thinking in the exact same model. And this is just the catch-up trade to gold. But I think you're right. So at first, there's the theoretical of what Bitcoin could be. And then you have kind of the proving stage of adopting Bitcoin. But then those real technological effects actually come in because there's so much that that code allows to be done on Bitcoin that gold can never do, that nobody even thought of before. Like you can't bring gold to Mars. Like by the time we're on Mars, there's going to be so much more gold on the way, and but you can make this intergalactic if we really want. This could really be like, I don't know, the next 10,000 year asset.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that, you know, I think the biggest question is if it gets to $1 million and people have now allocated 5%, why would people then stop at 5%? It's like, that's such a toe dip number, right? Of an allocation, 2% of your portfolio. Like anyone's losing sleep over 2%. If you're best performing, most sturdy, and most like, and you have to take into account how much your eyes open to the way the world works once you sort of step into the Bitcoin world. And that's why Bitcoin is the reason why I've always been more bullish on Bitcoin, not just because of all these like the math and the this and the that. It's because of the way it makes you see the world, and you see the world differently once you understand Bitcoin. And that's very, very addictive, and it's very, very, there's a culture behind it, and there's like a personal development cycle that happens with it. And I don't think that I think I'm in this Michael Saylor camp, which is like, there's really no top on Bitcoin, right? And so, and I think that any altcoin that finds product market fit and builds a niche that makes sense will also have no top on it, because you're dealing with US dollars, which have no bottom. And so I think that like, you know, I think that like as Bitcoin reaches these things and becomes completely legitimized, you will also see things like Solana. I believe that gaming will become the massive consumer app layer. I believe that you'll see a lot of different segments start to show extreme staying power. And maybe you shouldn't treat them like Bitcoin, but I think you should. I think they will also earn a permanent allocation in the larger investor portfolio. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to keep adding to my stacks as much as I can. I think there'll be continually different cycles, but I kind of hope there's a cycle, right? Because then you could buy low again. But I think that there's too many people this time that would want to do that. Like I think now in the fifth cycle, like you want now a fifth time to buy at extreme lows. I don't know if we're going to get that.
I think it's a lot smarter to just be at least holding, like for me, it's 50% Bitcoin, 50% cash. If we get to kind of the bottom case, like there's no way to believe in altcoins for some reason. I think that's still a lot smarter than, like, I understand crypto. I understand this space much more than others. And I understand why it's way more reflexive to the bottom non-existing hole of dollars. So it just makes sense.
Yeah, all right, man. This was a banger. This is our first episode. What do you guys think? What should we call this? Should we make this a weekly episode? One, audience chat, tell us if we should make this a weekly episode. And two, what should we call it? If you guys have any name suggestions that are really good, we might use them. Any final words, Dennis?
I think we should keep doing this, and I think we should bring on some guests. And I really like this dynamic as well. Like the way you, I listen to your stuff, and then a lot of times, like how you connect ideas and how people can perceive things, like the Trump idea with his coin, and when you just confirm what I thought what you were saying, that's actually very cool. And I think that I can get a lot of value from it, and having these conversations, hopefully other people can as well.
Yeah, awesome. And I agree. I think that, obviously I reached out to you earlier. I think you're a great content creator. And so let's keep the train moving, man. Appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for watching episode 1. We'll be back soon. Cheers.
All right.